Morning, everyone from Singapore, and hello to our friends tuning in from all around the globe. Welcome to today's session on manufacturing trends to look forward to in 2021. My name is Wei Min, and for those who may know, SGInnovate is a government-backed deep tech investor and company builder whose mission is to help entrepreneurial scientists build deep tech startups that are looking to solve big global problems. Our work also involves building a global community of leaders, thinkers, and doers to drive and scale up deep tech innovations in areas such as AI, healthcare, quantum tech, and autonomous technology across various industries. As Singapore looks to develop the country's Industry 4.0 capabilities, we are definitely curious as to what lies ahead of Singapore roadmap in becoming one of the top advanced manufacturing hub in the region. Today, together with Enterprise Singapore, we are proud to present this event with speakers of different sectors in the manufacturing industry. We'll be looking forward to hear more from them on innovating for Industry 4.0 and also for them to share what are some of the manufacturing trends that are up and rising so as they're able to stay ahead of competition for enterprises. We encourage for all speakers to share with us your thoughts on the topic or interact with our speakers by posting your questions in the Q&A tab located at the bottom panel of your screen. Otherwise, feel free to just say hi and do a quick shout out from where you are in the chat box below. I would like to pass the time over to our moderator for the day, Suchitra Narayan, Director, Venture Building, to kick off the discussion. Suchi, please.
Thank you, Wayman. Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to SGInnovate's Friday morning event on manufacturing trends to look forward to in 2021. I'm Suchitra Narayan, Suchi for short. Those of you that don't know me, I'm a director of venture building with SGInnovate. I've spent my career providing management consulting, commercial advisory, acquisitions, corporate partnerships, pretty much across Australia and Asia as well. So I'm really excited to be the moderator today for this session. And in particular, we're going to be looking at deep technologies within the manufacturing sector. What are the adoption trends? What are some of the game-changing innovations and what's coming up? And we're hearing from a fantastic panel of experts on this topic as well. So manufacturing has always been a key enabler in driving our local economy here, right? With job creation, allowing our top corporates to enter the ASEAN market, leveraging Singapore's very efficient workforce, demographical advantage as well. And as Singapore is striving to become one of the top advanced manufacturing hubs in the region, we'll sort of have to keep advancing our work to keep pace with some of these latest developments. And this was quoted by our own Trade and Industry Minister, Mr. Chan Singh as well. So to do that, we constantly have to innovate and we have to be updated by the latest and greatest of the trends in advanced manufacturing. Interestingly enough, this is my personal opinion, but two of the positive things or positive pieces of news that came out in the last entire year from the pandemic was one was improvement globally in pollution levels, a reduction in the damage done to the environment, and two was the rapid pace of innovation. I mean, humanity just stepping up to deliver fast solutions, everything from the vaccine to 3D printed ventilators, automation to keep production lines going, functioning with safe distancing. So that's, you can see, I'm very passionate about the topic. So we have an esteemed panel joining us today to discuss this very topic. Let's start with a round of introductions. Panelists, what I would like to do along with your line of introductions is sort of to level the playing field and understand what you mean when you use terms like innovation and sustainability in each of your contexts. So Prof. Sriram, could we get you to kick us off? Tell us about your company or the institution, your role, and what does innovation mean to you and what does sustainability mean to you specifically?
Thank you, Suchi, for having me on this panel. Good morning to everyone. My name is Sriram Ramakrishna, professor at the National University of Singapore. I'm at this university for the past 26 years. My main focus has been digital manufacturing, sustainability, and innovation. I also chair the Sustainable Manufacturing Technical Committee at the Institution of Engineers Singapore. I also involved in UNESCO discussions on sustainability and higher education. My main focus is looking at how manufacturing is going to shape by leveraging innovations that are happening in the sphere of sustainability as well as Industry 4.0. Thank you, Suchi.
Thank you, Sriram. We look forward to a very interesting discussion with you. Mausami, may I ask you to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Suchi, and thank you to SGInnovate for inviting me to be on this panel. So I'm Maushmi Bhatt from Micron Technology, and I'm responsible for driving our external manufacturing supply chain, supporting Micron's assembly and test operations in making some of the world's most advanced memory and storage solutions. And I have to say it's a privilege to be part of this panel where we have experts that are influencing the whole journey around manufacturing. So a little bit about Micron, and then I'll go on to talk about what innovation and sustainability mean to me. We are living in the age of big data. And I guess there's no secret there. And this is essentially where 2.5 quintillion bytes of data is created every day. And just to put it in reference, about 16 million text messages go out every minute. So this is the world of big data, and this is what we do at Micron. We make data meaningful and use that, and our cool products and solutions basically transform the world as to how they use information to enrich life. And a little bit about innovation. So to me, innovation is anything new, anything incredibly useful and wildly surprising, right? So I would say innovation is more like not accepting status quo. Innovation is about looking looking for ways to do newer and better things. And then when you're done, to be starting over again. And sustainability in the context of manufacturing and the products we build, our memory products, is about enabling a strong data economy through our advanced memory and storage solutions, while at the same time caring and advancing the environment as well as social equity. So you are making sure that you take care of your economy and you also are responsible, right? And digging a little bit deeper into our value stream, it's about innovating ways of doing responsible sourcing, responsible manufacturing, and the products should be those that have reduced carbon footprint, as well as products that help to accelerate the journey for sustainability.
Thank you, Masvi. I like that. Wildly surprising. I like that introduction. Yongshin, could we ask for your introduction, please?
Okay. I'm the co-founder of Mentis, Shin. So we are the startup in Singapore that provides the simplest way to program your robot through an app on your mobile device. So we do it in 3 ways. So we make it portable so that all the robot programming can be done on your iPad. There's no need for bulky PC. The second way that we do it is that you can easily create a digital twin of a robotic cell through the iPad itself, through the cameras of the iPad. Mm-hmm. And then therefore there's no need for a CAD file or any other additional models. And then the third way is that the whole interface is codeless, so you don't need to type a single line of code. And this way you make it easier for operators and anybody to program robots. So there's added benefit of, for example, advanced features such as collision avoidance, singularity avoidance, all these built into a simple app on the mobile device. And to us, innovation means that as a startup, it means that we are meant to solve existing problems on the market. And then as a result of that problem, we offer a differentiated product. And therefore we have a problem first and then solution approach. And because of this approach, we listen to the customer feedback intently, and then we develop features based on the customer's feedback. And at the same time, we also need to have the wisdom to actually prioritize the feedback and develop in a sustainable manner. So to us, sustainability means that because for startup, especially in the deep tech, it's all about implementation and growth. So to us, to be sustainable, we are very conscientious of our carbon footprints. In the process of doing so, we minimize all the resources that we need, for example, like electricity, for example, like space and materials, so that we don't sacrifice the environment for the sake of growth. Okay.
Thank you, Shin. Nice little pitch there for Augmentus as well. So folks in the audience, reach out to Shin if you'd like to talk to him about any of their solutions further. And Wilson, last but not the least, may I ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in the company?
Sure thing. Thank you so much for the introduction. And also thank you, SGInnovate, for inviting me as well. Always happy to speak. So my name is Wilson Deng. I'm the CEO of Arcstone, and Arcstone essentially is focused on the digital manufacturing space. We have tool sets designed to help the shop floor all the way through the entire supply chain to be interconnected through a digital thread, making sure that there is transparency, control, and optimization over these particular processes. Now, I think it's very interesting that you brought up these two words, which was innovation and sustainability. I'll address them both individually. From an innovation standpoint, the way I would put it, at least from the context of Arcstone, really is around now focusing on collaboration and integration. I think if you look at the manufacturing space and Industry 4.0 now, there's definitely kind of points or silos of innovation in different areas, everything from cobots to predictive maintenance to a bunch of different kind of buzzwords that you can see. But overall, I think the biggest type of game changers, things that will get very interesting in the next 10 years, is really around, well, how do all these systems start talking to each other? How does all this link together? How do you go beyond the four walls of your own factories and beyond your own facilities and your own enterprise to be able to link with a larger manufacturing ecosystem that is in the world? And this is where Arcstone strives and pushes a lot of our attention and focus into in growing this particular space, innovating in this particular space, I think. And that's kind of what we see as being the big kind of end result of where Industry 4.0 should be arriving at, which is a connected ecosystem, a digitally connected ecosystem that drives the then mechanical processes in the back end. So that's kind of where Arcstone's definition of innovation will come from. Obviously, everyone will have a slightly different interpretation of it. But the last but not least on the sustainability portion is that I actually have a very easy way of defining what sustainability means. And the way that I would explain it now is it's a non-negotiable. It is something that has to be embedded into every aspect of the business as you're proceeding and moving forward. It should not be of a debate. It should not be of a concern. It just needs to be part of the business plan of building competitive advantage. It has to be part of kind of the day-to-day things that Shin has just mentioned that you do on a regular basis. This should be embedded into people's behaviors, and that, of course, takes time to change. That takes courage, and that takes dedication, that takes policy, that takes a lot of these things to get to that point. But I think as long as we are getting closer and closer to this concept of the non-negotiable, the better and stronger it is over time. But that's how I would like to define sustainability moving forward.
Thank you, Wilson. I like that. I like that it's a non-negotiable, and I'm sure Prof. Siram would be very excited to hear that word, that it's non-negotiable. So for the audience, it looks like we're going to have a really lively discussion today. We've got a really interesting balance of speakers, if you notice, looking at advanced manufacturing from a variety of lenses, right? We have Prof. Siram, who's looking at it from an academic side of things. We've got Mausumi, who's looking at it from the semiconductor perspective, Shin from a robotics angle, and Wilson from digital manufacturing. So do keep your questions coming in the Q&A box. I will get to that. So certainly we've allocated time for the panelists to respond to your questions as well. Now, before I actually start to address specific questions at the panelists, could we go through maybe the same sequence of introduction in terms of introductions? And could each of you share briefly what are some of the most exciting happenings in each of your areas or sectors?
Well, Suchi, I would go in a sequence, and the most exciting part, there are two trends I see, is Industry 4.0 or digitalization of manufacturing, more in terms of automation and big data analytics is really something exciting things are happening. Also important thing I see that's happening is sustainability thinking in the whole of manufacturing industry and the supply chain. So I've seen companies, for example, a mobile phone manufacturer, looking at how they can look at all their suppliers, make sure they are supplying on time as per the schedule, also more innovative products. But at the same time, they're also looking at the sustainability credentials. So these are being looked at in terms of the supply chain. Mm-hmm. So I guess that actually affects all the companies, if they are small and medium enterprises, supporting the MNCs and other large global corporations. So I see that happening. And since I'm a professor, I need to differentiate from others. So I see that my university, which is National University of Singapore, again, no promotion of NUS, but the point is we just merged a School of Design and Environment and a Faculty of Engineering. Mm. So these are the two large schools. They have been just merged. The focus is we want to train future engineers with a strong design thinking as well as sustainability awareness. So I think that's an exciting part on my side, but I just want to make sure I pass on the time to the others.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. I mean, NUS is such a premier institution in Singapore, and it's great to be, setting the direction for the other universities for education as well. That's wonderful.
Yep. Just to give you a number, is about we've taken about close to 2,000 fresh graduates every year. So it's a lot of number. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sriram. I mean, I love the numbers you talk about, because that is a pipeline to my industry.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about what's very exciting from my side of the world. Probably the most exciting thing that's happening here is, despite COVID-19, the semiconductor market is growing, wildly. Again, I'll use the word wildly here because that best defines it. Unexpectedly is probably the other word. And this is all fueled by the cloud computing and the demand for remote work and learning. And to just give you a quick reference, in 2020, the market was, the worldwide semiconductor revenue was about $442 billion, which was a 5.5% growth from the previous year, 2019. And the projection is that 2021 is going to have an even stronger growth of 7.7%, which will bring us very close to $500 billion, which is $476 billion market. And we expect to see all of this as the vaccination gets decimated and economies start to open up and borders start opening up. So this is probably one of the most exciting news. But let's talk a little bit more about what's causing that or what's helping that. And Professor Sriram referenced this as well, and I'll talk about three that come to the top of my mind from a high-tech precision manufacturing view. So one of them is, of course, automation and mobility. So software innovation, AI, ML, RPA, blockchain for your supply chain transparency, robotics, autonomous technology. All of this is growing hugely, and we expect that this knowledge-based economy would be somewhere about 30% of our GDP around 2030. So huge growth expected over here, right? And then the other thing that supports it, the second item that supports it, is in order to enable all this, you need IoT on your shop floor, right? You need high precision sensors to bring the data home, for hyperconnectivity and massive data storage and processing to augment all the human capabilities that we are trying to achieve. And last but not the least, in bringing it all home, and this is probably something more up of Wilson's alley, is the deployment of interconnectivity through our 5G networks, right? Which will help us utilize edge computing, right, with very low latency and high speeds. And that will help us make real-time decision, which will help with our optimized production and efficiency. So all of that, basically collecting the data, processing the data, having your engines to process the data, and then deploying it over your network for fast decision making. And that's that. I'll stop there because we can probably continue to talk about it, and the list is long. But I'd like to hear from our other panelists.
Thank you, Masmi. Shin, can I get your perspective on this?
Okay, sure. So coming from the perspective of the robotics industry, so right now there are rapid adoption of robotics, and one of the more exciting news is that we start to see more robots outside of the manufacturing sector. So for example, we're starting to see robots in the vertical farming sector in a company called Syngrow. And we start to see that more and more agriculture companies or urban farming companies are starting to adopt robotics to automate a lot of their harvesting and also, for example, a lot of their produce processing process. Then we are also seeing robotic arms being used in a more traditional sector like the food and beverage. So recently there's a company called Crown Coffee. They are using robotic arms to serve coffee. So all you need to do is actually go to their kiosk using an app. You can order coffee, and instead of humans serving you, there'll be a robotic arm, serving coffee, making coffee for you. So we start to see sudden expansion of robotics outside the manufacturing sector, and to us this is definitely a good news, because previously when you mention robotic arm to someone, most of the time people have not seen it. People have not interacted with it before. But right now, if you talk about robotic arm, people will say, hey, I've seen it in Orchard, I've seen it in MRT station or something like that. So we start to see that as robotics get more and more democratized, and there is a need for people to know how to control them. And just suddenly the demand for robotics engineers will increase in the future. And I would say this is an effect of COVID, whereby more and more sectors, especially the traditional ones, are hoping to automate because of the social distancing rules and also limitations to the number of people in the factory shop floor. So I can see there's an uptrend in the CAGR for robotics, and I think we can expect more to come in the future.
Thank you, Shin. No, totally agree with you in the context of democratization of robotics. And certainly the pandemic has done one thing good for all of us. It's accelerated adoption into automation and technologies such as cobots and robotics. But I would like to see that coffee. I don't know if it can it actually make a kopi si kosong po? I don't know if it's as good at doing that, but hey, let's see. Wilson, can I get your perspective?
Sure. And I think, looking into kind of how the digital manufacturing space has evolved over time, especially since Arcstone has been around almost 8 years now, what we've seen a heavy kind of movement towards is the concept of decentralization of solutions in general. So of all the things that we're talking about, everything ranging from cobots to AI to predictive maintenance to all sorts of fantastic tools and platforms ranging from 5G onwards. These are all, for us, it's considered as individual silos of advanced tool sets, right? You have, for example, Augmentus, fantastic companies that have started up targeted in a particular area that they're going to be specialties in. But then we see that sprouting globally. And so it's no longer about kind of one massive conglomerate or company coming up with all the best solutions. It's really around how do we leverage and make sure that we float up to the top all the best solutions from anywhere that we can get. And then it goes back to the original concept of when I was talking about in terms of innovation. It's about integration, right? How do we now connect these kind of systems together? Connectivity is going to be a very large component of where we see the industry moving in the next couple of years. The hope is, of course, standardization. There has been a large push into this area. You do see a lot of large multinationals centralizing on kind of data protocols to leverage, but it's still, slogging towards that particular ideal point of everyone having the same commonality. But that's still kind of going to be the kind of key major changes that we see coming in the next couple of years, which is how do you integrate and not look at a solution as you being the only one available, but how do you look at your solutions being able to work with a ecosystem of other toolset providers, and how do we bring the best for the particular customers and manufacturers that require them. Right? So decentralization, breaking away from the concept of going for one vendor or going for one solution or going for one offering, but leveraging the best that we can get from elsewhere. And you'll continually see more and more ideas pop up here and there, right? And that's the beauty of Industry 4.0. It's the idea that it's not meant for just one company or one vendor to provide. It's meant for that ecosystem to grow. On the supply chain angle, I think, especially with what COVID has occurred and shown, is that de-risking and providing resiliency into the supply chain process has been a big deal as well, right? And if you look at it from a manufacturing standpoint, we are indeed in a space where, again, there's no one company that produces everything end to end. There's going to be anywhere between 5 to 500 to 5,000 suppliers that you may need to deal with in your process. Having a risk of, for instance, one country shutting down for whatever reason, or certain situations that can occur that provides or creates the uncertainty in the supply chain, can end up having situations where production just stops. So for example, when COVID had hit, there were certain facilities that perhaps they didn't have their lockdowns just yet. Their facilities were all still running, but everyone went to work and the factories weren't running because none of the raw materials showed up. No one could do anything. So everyone just standing around having fun. So those kind of things are where we see, again, the decentralization means also about the physical process as well, which is the concept of having massive facilities where everything is sourced from one single location or entity, and having high reliance on an individual supplier becomes a very big concern. How do we spread this across? How do we manage? And of course, now the complexity of this that comes up is where the fun of it all is, right? And this is kind of where ArcStone focuses very heavily on. This is where, again, a lot of opportunities will come up. So that's kind of where I would focus people's attention in the coming years. A lot of decentralization, de-risking, resiliency, redundancy processes into your digital tools and your physical tools and your supply chain processes as well.
And that ties back really nicely to what you said in the introduction as well. And I think a word that Masmi used and then you used, which is she mentioned connectivity, and then you mentioned the word collaboration. So it's all about the two C's, looks like. The connectivity, collaboration in order to move forward. Great, fantastic. So that said, let's get the panel on the road. So Prof. Sriram, I'm going to start with you. In the budget of 2021, the Finance Minister, Heng Swee Keat, announced the Green Plan, which has been called the whole of the nation movement to advance sort of our national agenda on sustainable development. In your introduction as a chair of sustainable manufacturing at the Institute of Engineers for Singapore, could you actually share some of the insights on how advanced manufacturing industry we can work towards being more sustainable in 2021?
Thank you, Suchitra. As our Deputy Prime Minister articulated in the budget speech, as well as lots of media articles emphasizing Singapore Green Plan 2030. This builds on industry transformation maps that have been worked by the several ministries as well as the companies over the past 5 years. So what we think at the Institution of Engineers Singapore as well as NUS, the world has changed clearly because of COVID-19. So as we come out of COVID-19, the important thing is to recognize the world supply chains, value chains, manufacturing chains are somewhat getting changed. And for Singapore to differentiate, we would have to understand deeply what's going to emerge in the future. That means next 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 years. So it's very clear, major economies and all the big global companies have pledged carbon neutrality. And also, but I keep an eye on Q&A. There's lots of questions from the audience. There are people, they're also not totally convinced. There is a lot of greenwashing that's going on. So I'm trying to combine an answer to you as well as to some of the questions I saw there so that we optimize the time. So even there is a greenwashing, but the total pledges around the world, they are now running into trillions of dollars. They're no longer millions of dollars or billions of dollars. So what that means is manufacturing companies, if you start making an assumption, even 30% of that funding would be made available for transition to green manufacturing, green carbon neutrality by the countries, communities, as well as companies. I think there is a huge opportunity. So I believe there is also another part that is happening. MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore, as well as the banking sector, is putting together investment funds for the companies with the plans that has a stronger, deeper sustainability credentials. So I believe that this is certainly something we should not miss in our planning. So that would be my advice to all the companies that are participating today. That yes, definitely there is some level of skepticism. There are some issues. They're bound to be understood deeply, and we need to make a business call. But the good news is, even the universities are changing now. We already planning to produce more engineers, other graduates with a deeper sustainability knowledge, so that they can help out as the companies start thinking about it. So I think I'm optimistic that that these policy, as well as funding, as well as innovations. For example, there's a lot of progress has happened in terms of digitization of manufacturing industry. You know, like Wilson and Shin, they were showing you about the examples about digital twins, about automation, integrating 5G. And then Maushmi, in her speech, she really said, you know, we are making more chips and more memory chips that would help out massive data that's coming in the trillions of bytes that can be stored, processed, and intelligent decisions can be supported. So I think if I had to say, intelligent manufacturing and more sustainable manufacturing is the way to go, especially for Singapore companies to differentiate, because our competition is very, very high. So the neighboring countries, they're also competing, and the supply chains are getting redrawn. So how do we differentiate? If you ask that question, how do we survive? I believe intelligent manufacturing combined with the sustainable manufacturing is something our high ground. So hopefully we put the effort, reach the high ground, and we're able to leverage that for 5-10 years. Again, ask the same question again, how do we sustain our business? And that's the routine process, yeah.
So that's a good segue into asking our audience what their perspectives on sustainability are. Wayman, can you bring up the first poll question for us?
While he's bringing, I don't want the silence, so I'm just filling up. So in fact, audience, we kind of read your mind. We prepared some poll questions. You could see the questions that are more or less what we thought. You might be seriously interested.
So let's take 10 to 20 seconds to fill that out. So proxy round, it says host and panelists cannot vote, so you don't get a vote on this one.
Exactly. So it says that I cannot vote, so obviously I have to speak about it.
Yeah. I tried to vote as well.
No, we can't. All right.
We get to talk about it. Okay, good.
That's right. That's right. Okay,
but
2 more seconds.
We won't talk about it until the poll is done. Otherwise, we are influencing the voting process.
Yeah. Okay, let's close that poll and let's look at the responses.
Wow, amazing. I was about to actually, my answer is actually 2 to 5, but I see the same response from the audience. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you look at it, I mean, there's 73% of people believe it's the short term. It is the main driver of manufacturing within the next 5 years, so within 1 to 5 years. And I love that 8% of the people think that it will not be. Curious to hear from them in the future as well. I'm sure Prof. Siram would be willing to buy those people a cup of coffee to understand why.
Absolutely, you confirm my existence. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for that. So, what you were talking about in the context of sustainability, I'd like to call on Wilson, because when you think about digital manufacturing, there's a lot. We significantly tap into data centers, and that results in a high carbon footprint. Data centers have a bad name because of their carbon footprint. Do you see trends in having the entire sector for digital manufacturing to become more sustainable? And is there any specific trends that you're starting to see, Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely talk about the data center usage portion first, because I would actually be a little bit cautious about that concept. As if you think about it, one of the abilities to optimize is it's a lot easier to optimize one location than 5,000 locations. So if you imagine if you have individual servers running in every single facility, trying to optimize for the electricity consumption for each one of those might be tricky. Although, of course, there's still improvement for data centers to change and to upgrade and to become more sustainable. It still is something that may be easier in the long run to manage instead of having a distributed situation where there are multiple large scale servers that everyone's trying to maintain, and then you have excess capacity that may be sitting in other areas. Having a large centralized data center allows you to just throttle accordingly when you need the processing power, when you don't need it, and then share that accordingly, right? Whereas if you have it in a distributed environment, that might not help out. So, but I would more focus kind of a little bit more in terms of, yes, there is, of course, there's the electronics that you need to keep running in order for Industry 4.0 to remain live. That is something where I think over time, folks will find more opportunities to look at optimization of that process. I can point to a wonderful company called Evercon, which we work very closely with, that does energy optimization, and they focus within the data centers aspects as well. And there's going to be more and more opportunities for companies to look into that space to continue to drive improvements in energy consumption. But if you look into manufacturing as a whole, I think sometimes it can be quite daunting. I think, when even if you were to be thrown a pile of money and say, now be sustainable, what do you look at? Right. And I think sometimes that's not in a matter of really trying to figure out how to spend the money, but look internally to see how does production improvements themselves translate to sustainability gains, right? A simple fact, right? If your machine is running properly and running well, if it has, a very close to 100% quality rates that are good, that means the machine has to run less time, right? If you had, 20% that faults, or because you had to redo them, the machine has to run longer. You're burning more electricity. Simple things that are of that kind of nature allows you to actually combine together productivity savings with sustainability savings. And I think that is a very good first step to get the mindset going, right? Because if you're talking to traditional manufacturers that have been running the business for the past 30 years, and suddenly, even if you threw them a pile of money and say, please go and be sustainable, it's not necessarily something that will pop up the next day. But if you tie that to a more traditional methodology of productivity savings, quality improvements, et cetera, and to show what would be the sustainable impact of that, right? Which is, again, really focused on transparency of the data and the visibility of this, which is what ArcStone focuses very heavily on and driving this process as well. That itself is going to do great value for the company as a whole and the environment in general as well. So that is one area that I would very heavily advise folks to try to incorporate that concept of basically just sustainability reporting and information, to have that available on a day-to-day basis, to let that be one of the drivers for your decision-making as well, instead of having it be like a completely siloed independent thing, where some people right now think of sustainability, oh, that's just one department you go talk to. But instead, if you embed that into the rest of the organization, that is where you're going to start driving and seeing a lot more value. So that would be item number one that I would focus into. Item number two, which is actually something that ArcStone is driving very heavily together with the Advanced Remanufacturing Technology Center, the ARTC, which is a fantastic research agency that's based out of Singapore here that we've been working with, that we're actually doing some very heavy-duty joint research work to provide this level of manufacturing transparency up to the customer level. Right? So when you walk into a store and you pick up one bottle of shampoo and you pick up a second bottle of shampoo, you really have no idea which one is actually better for the environment versus the other, right? You can guess, you can try to look at some of the labels in the back, but you really wouldn't know. Everything from the raw materials to the compounds to the things that came from the farm to how it was transported to you and where it transported from, all these are actually independent contributors to global warming, to the carbon footprint issue. But if there is no kind of clear way for a consumer to make a conscious decision on what to buy and what not to buy, comparing it to a metric of sustainability, that becomes a big problem. So one of the key things around this research space is, can we then create a live sustainability metric and a label that would be essentially attached to all the products that we buy that actually have that level of traceability to go all the way back to really know what is the actual carbon footprint of the product that you're purchasing, of the product that was actually produced. Instead of just giving you one little rating saying that it's green, you actually have no idea what green actually means, especially in comparison to the other products that you've been buying in that line as well. So this is kind of where we see, at least from a manufacturing digitalization standpoint coming in, is really that visibility and transparency. One is visibility internally for your organizations to improve. And then second one is the external visibility now to actually start changing consumer perception about how you should shop and what you should buy for, factoring in sustainability now as a reliable metric to measure against.
Thank you, Wilson. Now that you've spoken about it, let's see what the audience perspective of sustainability is. Wayman, can we have the next survey question up there? Again, let's take about 10 to 15 seconds for this. It's not a difficult question to respond to, so I'll give you 10 seconds. Okay, wonderful. I think we can close the poll on that. And no, Prof. Siram, I think you can, we can you know, discuss this at the end. Please do make a note, but let me talk to Masmi about innovation as well. And then please do address this, because I think the audience would do well to hear from you about greenwashing as well and some perspectives. So we'll put that on hold for the moment, and I will come back to you on it. Masmi, so switching from sustainability to innovation, because we are talking about trends for 2021, can you share some of the innovations and creative problem solvings and solutions that you've actually pushed through in Micron?
Actually, I'm going to disappoint you, Suchi, because I'm going to bring you back to sustainability, because that's kind of what I have been pushing. and I'm really excited about and it's something that excites me, and I'm excited about the questions that are coming through, and I'd like to address some of them. But okay, besides my day job, and it's actually difficult to decouple manufacturing and sustainability, because I think we heard it during this forum that it's not something you do one day or you send to a department. It is something that you do every day, and that's kind of where I see myself. And so, what I would like to address is my role as a steward of sustainability within the manufacturing environment. Right? I think there's a lot of interest in trying to understand that. I just want to give you all, and I'll also try to answer some of the questions that's on the chat box, as well as a little bit on greenwashing maybe. But I see my role within Micron as not just a manufacturing professional, but also a manufacturing professional that brings sustainability into the whole process. So as you could call that a steward for sustainability. And we in Micron have committed to some very aggressive goals for 2030. And I'll list a couple of them for you, which is 75% CO2 reduction per unit compared to our CY18 goals, and an aspirational goal of being net zero, 100% renewable energy. That is our aspiration goal as well. That's going to be a tough one to achieve in Singapore, but but in other countries it's a little bit easier. Water, about 75% RRR by CY30, and an aspiration goal to go 100%. And for reuse and for waste, it's about 95% for reuse, recycle, and recovery, and zero waste landfill. And of course, aspirationally going to 100%. RRR. So, and just to help you understand that these are not just topics that go into our investor presentation, we have committed $1 billion of budget for the next 5 to 7 years on sustainability initiatives. So that's a lot of money, and for we have the opportunity to use that and take that through. Personally, for me, what are some of the problems that I'm solving within this context? And Suchi, you talked about it at the beginning. And the two things that COVID has done is a huge acceleration in innovation and a huge awareness around sustainability. So I've got two big projects around sustainability that I'm working on, and one of them is with our Micron Ventures, which is our funding body for looking for initiatives on clean tech startups. So everyone out there that is a startup and is looking to make a difference in the manufacturing world, we're here. So yes, so that's one. So we go through the process of evaluating and bringing them into our process. And then the second one is around looking at our scope 3 and our upstream manufacturing, our suppliers and our subcontractors, and looking at their carbon footprint and looking at how that impacts the carbon footprint of our products as they go out. So those are two big areas that I'm engaged in, and I find it really exciting, and there is so much to be done there. There's so much opportunity. And Wilson, to your thought process before, it should be somewhere where we don't look at this as a competition, but we collaborate and leverage on what's out there to come up with the best solutions, because we need this now and we need this fast and we need this cheap. So
love your passion, Masmi, and to all the startups out there, clean tech, you know who to contact. So do link up with all the panelists on LinkedIn or emails. I'm sure each of them would be happy to reach out, share some time with you as well. Shin, I haven't heard from you, so let me switch to a robotics perspective, and then I promise you we're going to get to the audience Q&A. How would you comment on corporate readiness in terms of adoption of robotics in the manufacturing process? Because it's interesting, right? It's interesting to observe that there's so many tech trends that are happening, and technology itself is changing, but it's a whole different dimension of adoption, which calls for organizations to sort of change their mindset, change the way they are thinking of process and technology. Do you have any experiences that you'd want to share with us on that, Shin?
Okay, sure. So when it comes to adoption of robotics, robotics has been around for many years, almost half a century, and it's a pretty established field, and a lot of manufacturing factories already have robotics. So right now we start to see a lot of trend whereby smaller companies, SMEs, are adopting robotics in their manufacturing processes. And when it comes to robotics, company leaders always look for a metrics, which is return on investment, ROI. So for example, they invest 50 to 100K on a robotic system, and then what they want to know is how long would it take for the investment to break even. And because of this heavy focus on return investment, and therefore a lot of them are looking for lower cost automation systems that can fulfill their needs. And fortunately for ESG, with the support ESG, many companies are receiving a lot of grants and subsidy, so that they can start and embark on the automation journey. And we also are very fortunate in Singapore is that a lot of corporate leaders in Singapore are very forward-looking. So they are constantly scouting within the borders of Singapore to look for companies that can work with. So this ties back to the point of Wilson, whereby companies should collaborate together to bring out values to a customer. And we are fortunate is that a lot of our partners are forward-looking industrial leaders who foresee that the future needs of customers, and then partner up with our local startups. Even though startups, we are smaller and more agile. And another thing I want to actually tie back to Wilson is that we start to observe that there are companies outside of the traditional manufacturing sector that are more receptive to emerging technologies, or more receptive to technologies that conventional manufacturing sectors are less receptive to in the past. For example, in the agriculture sector, in the food and beverage, when they adopt robotics, right, they will want more new technologies to come together, and they are very receptive to connectivity because they want control, they want oversight over their robotic system. And for example, when they have like a lot of like stores throughout the whole of Singapore, they want the ability to actually connect to every single store and control them, and then through a single dashboard have an oversight of all the production, downtime, and so on. So we do see that there's actually huge opportunity for Arcstone and robotics to tie in together to offer a very good services to all these unique sectors. And regarding the overhaul of their systems when they adopt robotics, it's a very common thing. So for example, you have a production line, you have like before COVID, you have 5 to 10 people working on that production line. And then COVID hits, then you can only have 3 people. Then suddenly their productivity plummet, and they still need to sustain the production to meet the customer demand. So therefore, what happens is that a lot of them are looking for automation to fill in the gaps in the short-term production. And then we also start to see that a lot of the companies in Singapore, right, they are not doing low mix, high volume production. A lot more and more companies are doing high mix production, whereby they will process, for example, change the product every week. The product will change in size, shape, or design, and then they need to reprogram the robot. And this is where augmenters can come in to help them to, for example, reprogram the robot in a very fast and efficient manner, so that they can actually use robots to do high mix production. And this will help them to actually hit their ROI target in a much earlier manner. So in short, we start to see that robotics, even though it's really established, but it's starting to get very widespread adoption. And being the high mix production, for example, iPhone model change every year, and then production get more and more variety. If you go on Taobao and see the availability of the products get more and more varied, then we see that Singapore, if you want to actually sustain the manufacturing, then Singapore has a need to actually sustain the high mix production and then allow the automation to cater to the high mix production in the long run. Yeah.
Thank you, Shin. Panelists, I'm keeping my eye on time, and given the short time we have left, may I request, I'm going to go to the audience Q&A, but may I request that if you do choose to respond to one of these questions, you keep your responses to 30 seconds or really short, so that we can get to more number of questions. But while I read out the question, Wei Min, can we have the last poll up on the screen, please? So let's get to the questions while the poll comes up. The question is from Andy Wee. There's a strong push to increase manufacturing in Singapore. Do you see any 1 to 3 technology blue ocean wish list that the manufacturing industry needs, which startups can explore in materials, IoT sensors? Question mark.
Well, I give a quick answer for that. Startups are always hard pressed to produce results and convince the investors. My suggestion is focus on integration of the materials, advanced technologies, but come up with a differentiating solution. And I think that would be the easier and maybe a better way to do. Yeah.
I can add as well, Suchi. So yes, definitely, as we are scaling devices, we need disruptive materials for sure. Just a quick reference, Micron has just released our 176 layered NAND, which is the best in class and a record. And what that means is more memory for you on your phones. So some blue ocean materials that you could be looking for that we would like to see in production is 2D materials like carbon nanotubes or graphene similars, nanowires to replace our interconnects, conductors that can build atomic level switches, and essentially composites that can help increase the operation window of the existing materials. So we're constantly looking for innovation in the area of scalable materials.
So quickly going back to the poll responses, I'm not going to focus too much on that right now, but robotics, number 1, 27%, industry 4.0, and investing in sustainability at 24% as well. as expected. I think no surprises there. What are one to two pain points that manufacturing companies are increasingly facing, both in Singapore and internationally? And what are some of the technology innovations that you think can address this?
I can take that from the ArcStone's perspective. I see a lot of companies now are facing kind of more regulatory / reporting / transparency requirements. Again, the competitiveness, which is the second part, which is driving a lot of this, is that there's a lot of potentials of other companies offering the same thing that you're offering, and they may be able to offer it at a much cost-effective rate if they're outside of Singapore. So finding that competitive advantage of being able to provide higher transparency over production processes, higher quality, faster turnaround time, those are going to be key drivers. And I think those are things that people are going to struggle with for a while as they change from the traditional operating procedures into the new ones, the more digitally connected ones as well.
Thank you for that, Wilson. So the next question, what are your thoughts on the manufacturing ecosystem in Southeast Asia? Do you think we have the potential to be self-sustaining? So in other words, our local Southeast manufacturing demands can be met by Southeast Asia manufacturers?
I think it depends on the sector. Some sectors, certainly that is possible, yes.
So the answer is it depends. Very academic. The next one of the challenges we face in contributing to green technologies, contributing to the climate and energy of sustainable goals has been making it affordable and scalable. Believe it should also be a focus to support innovation through a sustainability ecosystem to avoid greenwashing. Comments?
Well, I think you're right. The innovation need to be supported. If as an academic, I can say, for example, every materials that is out there need to be re-innovated because most of it had a certain carbon footprint. I think humanity will do better for themselves and the future generations if they can reinvent every material, every product, and every process with the sustainability credentials or carbon neutrality in mind. There's a huge scope for innovation. So I think it's for the current as well as future generations. A lot can be done. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to second that as well. It is, as Prof. Sriram said, it is important to start thinking about designing in sustainability into your manufacturing chain, right, into your production chain, which means materials, which means your processes, your equipment, and your product. You know, are you designing our product for a usage window which is environmentally friendly?
Yeah, I like to just give them one tool. If they like to have a very systematic thinking, there is something called life cycle engineering.
Yes.
Life cycle thinking. Yeah. So they can Google search on it if they're not familiar. Because I'm surprised they didn't hear about greenwashing. So I guess they're very good. So I think, so if they like to start thinking about it, there is something called life cycle engineering, life cycle thinking, or life cycle impact assessment. They will give you, yeah, that's right. Sorry, Mosami, go ahead. So basically that gives a systematic way any manufacturer to think about themselves and also see how they can plug to the other ecosystem. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Mosami, go ahead.
No, just to close that, in the manufacturing world, just for our audience, we are applying LCA, life cycle assessment, in order to determine our next steps.
Sorry, can I just add one more, Suchitra, for that? Yeah. So for LCA, all those life cycle engineering, you need a lot of data as a curated quality data. I think probably you can chase all other panelist members and see how you can collect the data in a manufacturing. And then that data has to be properly analyzed so that you get a quality answer out of that.
I will jump in to add my notes on this one as well. This is what the ARTC and ArcStone is focusing very heavily on, to actually be able to aggregate, calculate, and merge all this information across the supply chain to the ability to actually calculate these kind of values that you're looking for. So it would be great to have a deeper conversation then.
Fantastic, thank you.
Sounds good. We have a lot more questions in the audience Q&A. Women, I hope there's a way of collecting the questions and making sure that we have a system of getting back to our audience. We won't have time to get to all the other questions today. And I myself had a couple more questions, but rather than that, in the interest of time, since we're at 11, may I just go back to Prof. Sriram, and since we did ask a poll about greenwashing, could you give us the 10-second on greenwashing, just for the sake of the audience to get closure on this?
Yeah, I give a best example is the fashion industry. There's a lot of greenwashing happens. And well, I'm not against any particular industry. Just to give an example. So my 10-second view is greenwashing involves in the leaders of the organizations and a value chain. They really want to survive, and they're trying their own way to tell the world that they're doing things that are environmentally sustainable. So while this greenwashing is going on, they're also aware they need to do much more so that their products and services are truly sustainable and environmentally green. Yeah.
True. Yeah, I did see that with the H&M chain, that you can drop off your old cotton clothing and you do get vouchers to
That's
spend
right.
in the store. But it doesn't mean that their clothes themselves are sustainable.
Correct.
Yeah,
exactly.
Very fair point. So on that note, want to say a big thank you to all our panelists. You've been amazing sports. I know I gave you rapid fire rounds and Q&A, but I do appreciate it. Thank you for spending the morning with us. Prof. Sriram, Ausmi, Shin, Wilson, it's been an absolute pleasure. For the audience, do connect with us, connect with the panelists on LinkedIn or reach out to us. We'll be happy to link you up as well. And you've been a great audience, lots of questions. So thank you very much, and stay safe. Not yet safe out there, so stay safe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Suchi.
Suchitra, well done.
Great questions and insight gathered from the speakers. I hope everyone from the audience have something to take home today. And also learn more.
Women, the message is they need you to work hard and organize the next one.
Definitely. Especially when it's unfortunate that we weren't able to answer all the questions for today.
Yeah.
So that being said, I would still like to represent SGInnovate to thank all the attendees who have stayed with us till now. Same thing, big thank you to our speakers, Wilson, Shin, Mausumi, and last but not least, Prof. Sriram, for the wonderful sharing today. Just for the attendees again, do keep a lookout for post-event mail, which will contain a recording of today's session. Do reach out to us at events@sginnovate.com if you'd like to connect with any of our speakers or have to chat with us for collaboration opportunities. Do remember to also give us your post feedback when you visit the webinar or through the post-event mailer as well. So this is Wei Min signing out from this webinar as well. Hope everyone have a great day ahead. Goodbye.